Hi, my name is Enda Murray. I'm the director of the Irish Film Festival. I'm delighted to be joined tonight by Robert Higgens, the co-director of Lakelands, and by Éanna Hardwicke, who plays the lead role of Cian. You're very welcome, guys. Congratulations on a great film. I saw this film in Galway, and I thought that's the film for the opening night of the Irish Film Festival in Australia. It just hit all of the buttons that I think are important here. You know, particularly with the GAA, with growing up in a small town, about kind of being a man's man, and the leaving and the staying, I just thought it's a great film. So. Robert, could I start with you? You co-wrote the script with Paddy McGivney. How did this story come about? Where did you get the idea in your head from?
Thanks very much for having us, Enda. So the story, I suppose, was one that was very close to home for us. Myself and Paddy, we grew up in the same town in Granard, Longford in the Midlands. And, you know, a big part of growing up there is kind of football. And that's where it's one of the chief social outlets. So we're eager and always thought there was a lot in that world. There was a lot of unique rituals and routines and pressures that come with it. And so we had from all the years playing it growing up, we had a kind of a good bank of stories, but we also wanted to kind of look at it from all angles, you know, show the good, but also show the pressures and how identity can get kind of tied up in that and how that can be negative sometimes, and kind of just give a real all-round look at it. And, you know, I think it's true of a lot of sports where there's such levels of dedication requested that it can lead to identity getting very tied up in that. So our jumping off point was looking at someone who was very much on that road, and then something unexpected kind of set him off it. And we used that then as a little bit of a jumping off point to explore where we're from, and you know, such as questions as coming and going, and as you said there, you know, and just kind of looking at what the landscape is like for a young person in a small town in Ireland these days. So very personal, but we just felt there was something there that might be interesting to explore.
Yeah. Éanna, thanks a million for taking the time. I was interested how you became involved in the film, how you heard about it, and the kind of process of getting on board.
Well, thanks for having us, Enda. It was a different one for me. I hadn't quite gotten involved in anything in this capacity. I spoke to Paddy and Rob. We were kind of speaking. I've been speaking to Robert about other things for a little while, and they got in touch, and we spoke. We had a Zoom, and we sort of did that kind of dance you do on a Zoom where you're not really sure. We're not really sure what we're kind of getting at. We're just sort of sussing each other out a bit, and I think we hit it off very, very quickly. And it was just very exciting, like to get to read the script before when it's sort of in its infancy. But it was this like really well honed, like ready to go script, and I got really excited by it. I thought this was a kind of film I hadn't seen made here. It was a landscape that had yet to be depicted on screen, and was a kind of a character that I didn't really feel like I'd seen in Irish cinema. And I loved the kind of finely balanced sort of characters, and the way that they told the story without ever going into the extremes. They sort of told it in the kind of the things that might feel small on an epic scale but are huge personal kind of events. And so I just really liked the tone they had. And then we just started kind of discussing character and story over a period of like 2 to 3 months, which again is something you never get to do. You know, we got to meet up whenever we were all in town together and chat through, you know, backstory, and it was a great way to sort of mine the kind of world of the story over a period of time. At that point, they had Danielle Galligan, Lorcan, Cranich, Gary, they had David, they had, you know, this fantastic cast assembled. So it was brilliant. It took shape long before we all stepped on set, which is again really rare. And we then got to go to Longford, to the Backstage Theatre in Longford, and spend 2 days discussing the script and, taking it apart and putting it back together again. And we found it was pretty watertight, and I think you get that when, like, clearly this is Robert and Paddy's world, and as an outsider coming in, it just felt compelling and really well thought out and judged. So yeah, we got to spend 2 days just rehearsing and talking about who these people were, what were their relationships to each other, and that was gold, really. So yeah, it was a very unique kind of intro to it, from my experience anyway.
Cool. Hey, Robert, why did you choose as Granard? What was the reason why you went to Granard? Was there a particular reason there? And I was interested in how you found the farm and the locations.
Yeah. So we picked Granard because it's our hometown, and we were shooting it on the smaller end of the budget, so we really leaned on our kind of connections and everything. So very much the places we grew up around, that farm, that's Paddy's family farm that we shot in, and the house is Paddy's dad's, and then the pubs we drink in, it's the football pitch, and we just knew it super well. We knew how it looked. When you're writing the script, you could envision what the shots were going to look like right away, because you knew the places like the back of your hand. And just as I said, like when you're working on the smaller budget end and you have that level of support, where you can fill a pub with a promise of a couple of pints at the end of it, and you have like the rowing we got from the town was incredible. We were able to do things you wouldn't be able to do elsewhere on a budget level. We were able to shut down the main street a couple of times. We were able to get full nightclubs and full GA scenes, and these kind of lend a real sense of scale and production value. And they're just stuff you might not get if you're don't have that buy-in from the local community. So that was a big appeal to it, and just the fact that there was something about the near autobiographical sense of shooting the places where there was actually many stories like this had taken place. There was just something that really appealed to us about that, and I think it would lend some authenticity to the whole kind of script.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing, it cost you a fortune. You are having to pay extras, and it's you're not alone. It's a couple of films that we've been screening, and people have been talking to us about how local people getting behind it. You're not a kind of conventional journey into filmmaking. What's your kind of background?
Yeah. So I would have been writing kind of from a very young age, and with the goal to eventually do it. But I kind of took segue into corporate world there for a while, as did my co-director Paddy. So I would have worked in marketing and public relations for many years, and he would have been in finance. So we were in it a couple of years. We just started meeting up in the evenings and having that kind of creative itch, and it was coming more and more. So we spent quite a few years in that alternative place, but we always feel it lends us some skills that are applicable in the film industry as well, whether it be marketing or figuring out how to finance off the side of things work. So we always found it very beneficial, but for sure it was a bit of a roundabout way coming to it.
Very good. Hey, Éanna, you're originally from Cork. Did you have a background playing GAA that you were able to draw on for the role?
It'd be a minor footnote, definitely, like growing up. But I did play. I played for my primary school. What was the Cork School Projects, and Cork Educate Together, and we won a Ski and Skull actually at one point. So I was big into sport till I was about 13, 14, and played for Glanmire, played Gaelic for Glanmire as well. But as I say, it was like there's that age you reach when it starts to get more serious and the commitment levels go up, and you have to make that choice. You go, is this where I'm going to put, am I going to put my eggs into this basket? And I realized the decision was out of my hands. I wasn't a good enough athlete, but I knew the world anyway, and I love playing sport, still do. So, it was kind of it was a bit of common ground, like kind of a way in, I suppose, to the story, which was very, very helpful.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, your character, Cian, in Drogheda, when I was growing up, we'd call Cian a man's man. And I was wondering about what kind of preparation you would do for a role like this, or how much kind of your own experience would you bring to put a spin on Cian's character? How much were you able to do?
Well, it's for me, the way in is always the same. It's just to sort of read the script as much as you can, and kind of, I think when it's well written, all of your ideas come from that. So it wasn't one where I suppose I needed to do a ton of research. But there's practical things you need to get down then, So I sort of trained with a team, Clanagale in Ringsend, Sandymount in Dublin, and just kind of got back into the swing of things there. Paddy, the co-director and co-writer, Paddy McGivney, he showed me around the farm with his father, Pádraig, so I got to, kind of get the lay of the land there. And then in terms of my own experience, I suppose I always think of it as a character. Like I always think of it, you're bringing yourself to what's on the page. You're not bringing it towards you. But that said, there's a whole spectrum of characters, and some of them are, by proxy, just closer to you. So this is my generation. This is, the Ireland that I grew up in. And, there's so much of that is kind of a common experience. And, I grew up in Cork. Cian's living in Longford from Granard. And there are differences, but it's that kind of finding similarities and finding the differences. That's where you sort of build a character, I think. And that was kind of my approach. Then I just wanted to spend as much time with Paddy and Rob, with Lorcan and with Danielle, and just to get to talk about backstory and kind of history. And I always find that stuff very helpful. I find, that becomes the kind of that becomes your sort of subtext, and can be very, very helpful when you're on set, just to feel like you've got this shared life. These characters have, known each other for their whole lives. So that's my way in. But there was probably a degree with this character, there was probably a degree to which I was bringing a lot of my own experience to it. And that was nice. That was a kind of a first,
Yeah. So just coming back to you, Rob, I read a review of the Irish Examiner, said the film could easily have fallen into cliches about Bog Irish, but it is in fact an authentically Irish story. And so how conscious were you about writing a contemporary story of Ireland? I suppose from my perspective, our perspective here in Australia, we're starting to see a lot of young people coming out again. People who are maybe can't get a place to live in Ireland, but that's what I suppose. What struck me about it was that you had the old and the new, and just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was one of the key goals, I suppose, was to give a fully contemporary kind of look, sort of a panoramic of all of what Midland life is like. And as you said there's a lot of people going out. So, and, me and Paddy come from the generation where we were coming out of college just after the recession, so that was kind of a big part of our, transition into adulthood. It would have been dealing with a lot of immigration and stuff like that. So that always kind of finds a way into our work somewhere. But for us, it was just to really, there's a lot of, I suppose, pictures of Irish, and you can, as you said, be pushed towards cliches. So we're really just keen on kind of subverting them wherever it was possible. Obviously, you have a sports film, it can be, you're in a minefield of kind of cliche opportunities here and there. So for us, that was very front of our mind. And, you have a romance. It can also end up our platonic kind of romance in this case. So you are in a bit of there is temptations everywhere to fall back on familiar tropes. But we were just eager to really kind of try and keep it as close to reality, I suppose. And that was kind of a real guiding principle for us, just to keep it close to reality and kind of reflect the stories and the reality that we've seen when we were growing up in the town around us. And we used that as a bit of a guiding star to hopefully veer it away from anything too well worn.
Yep. I was very interested in the idea of Cian's character, that he gets the bad news, but yet he doesn't want to accept it, and he keeps it all to himself. So Éanna, I was interested in that kind of idea of masculinity and how that were you conscious of that when you were playing the part, this idea of strong, silent, but cracking up underneath?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's something I've always been interested in, and I think it's something we're all engaging in. So yeah, it was something I was aware of and something we discussed a lot. I guess as it was sort of laid out in the script, I felt it gave a very kind of clear path to playing it. You're playing someone who really likes their life, who's happy where they are, who has a job that they love every day, and has an outlet in sport as well. And as Rob was saying, I suppose with the level of commitment that is required in, play GAA at a high level, it becomes your life, and it is for Cian. And so I suppose to some extent this film looks at what it's like to get your sense of identity sort of pulled from you very, very quickly. And the way that Cian handles that, I thought was fascinating. It was very, very, very interesting. In the spirit of avoiding cliches, I think we were trying to steer away from it being, here's a bloke and he can't talk about anything, and his recourse is drink and drugs, and that's his way of handling it. That is a factor, but I think what the lads were getting at was more, I felt anyways, was more nuanced than that. That he's the young man who is growing up in modern Ireland and is very aware of all these conversations, is very aware of the fact that we are breaking down stigmas around mental health and around being able to talk about this stuff as men. And he has his own language of dealing, his own way of dealing with these things, his own way of discussing them with, his mates. It's coded, it's indirect, it's not like they're confronting things head on, but it also works to an extent. Of course, film shows the fact that it doesn't work all the time as well, and that this attitude, I suppose, of kind of keeping it pushed down, pressing on, trying to work through and persevere through injury and and tough times emotionally, that doesn't always do it. And I suppose I really wanted that to kind of come through. I really wanted that we weren't saying something sort of didactic or simplistic about about masculinity and male mental health. That we wanted to handle that by sort of looking at the yin and the yang of it. So yeah, it was a big conversation we were having, and something I cared a lot about and wanted to give my best go at handling it truthfully anyway.
On a lighter note, what was the most enjoyable thing for you in making the film?
It was all pretty great. It was November, and you think like it's going to be a slog, and the sun was out. It was like a kind of it was all our kind of we were very, very fortunate with everything on this. And what was the best? I mean, just in general, it was the group of people that were there, the cast and crew, and the fact that we were shooting in relocations and we were all sort of living in the same area. I don't know, it just made it felt like a very natural process. Filmmaking can sometimes feel like the most insane environment, being like enormous sets and kind of huge scale just to get the thing done, and that is a necessary part of it. Whereas this was so we just all had a good time at work, And I think someone said to me once, the making of the thing has to be as important as the finished product. And I found that to be the case here. We all had a great time at work, and hopefully that, when you have that, it shines through.
Yes, I would say very much so. Rob, I'll just finish up with you. We're running out of time, but what for you? What was the most enjoyable thing? You're making another film, so obviously it didn't put you off completely. What was the most enjoyable thing for you? It must have been tough coming back to where you grew up.
Yeah, well, our company's based there, so I'm there a lot of the time as well, and it's we're very entwined in it and in the community there. The best part was just seeing, it was probably jarring at first when you see literally things come to life which you've lived variations upon. It was that close, when you're in the local pub or you're running around the pitch, and it's kind of seeing like a mirror version of things you've lived. So that was pretty special. But just overall, it was definitely like we all, I think, made like really strong friends on that shoot, like, and to be able to kind of share just the journey after it with everyone, and thankfully it was a lot of people were kind of making kind of, I suppose, the jump. Like a lot of the crew would have worked on some very high level shorts and were doing their kind of first feature, and like a lot of our actors were moving into lead roles, and then so we were all kind of taking a bit of a jump and taking a bit of we were all just pulling together kind of with the same goal. So it was great then when we finally came together, and and the finished product was up on the screen, and we kind of got to do the little tours around the place. It was really great to be able to share that with kind of we're in the trenches with.
Fantastic. Look, I think it certainly glows on the screen, and I think it's a wonderful piece of work. So thanks a million, Goramila Maiga, for taking the time to talk to us, and all the best with the next one. Slán.
Slán.